What's going on, guys? Welcome to Preparedness Fire podcast. Today, I am with Logan Broberg. Logan, thanks, bro.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, man.
So we're going to talk about a lot today, and I'm super stoked for this conversation that's in person. We just got done working out, having a great dinner, and what's the mindset when Julian's coming to train? What was your thought process?
I just thinking, I gotta be able to put out.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So,
It's cool because when two guys that train a lot, get together, I kind of drop all like expectation. I do my best. You know what I mean? There's I'm not worried about judgment, and I don't think I ever am worried about judgment in training because I know I'm gonna get better.
oh, of course.
And what do you think? I think a lot of people struggle with that. I think a lot of people, especially guys like us that train a lot, if we're like, hey man, let's go work out. I think my thought process is, let's get better, right? Like, we're gonna show deficiencies, and if we don't, we're not training hard enough,
Right.
and then we're gonna grow from there. And then like, hey, like today we did a simple PT test, got some numbers, and like I'm not happy with them. Like I want better numbers, like everybody does wants to do better. But why do you think people struggle with that? And how have you not? I know you've always you show up to every challenge. Every challenge, you show up. Why do you think people struggle? And how would you help people that do struggle with that?
I think there's definitely different reasons why people might struggle with that. Some people, especially in this job, they're type A, so maybe it's their ego, And I kind of joke with my crew. I just tell them, hey, look, man, your ego is not your amigo. Like, I'd much rather you do correct form, not hurt yourself, maybe scale it back.
Right.
And then I think the other issue, depending on the person, is maybe just they don't have as much self-confidence, so they're worried about looking weak in front of other people, especially, if you're in a crew type setting, at the firehouse, that people have to rely on you.
Right.
So what I do is I kind of joke around with my buddy Phil, because he asked me the other day, he's like, how do you always get people to work out with you? How do you get them motivated? And I just tell them it's simple. I read how they are. If they're a type A type of person, I kind of just use peer pressure. I talk a little bit of smack, but my main goal is just to get them out there. So let's say maybe it's not that type A person. It's the person that's a little more introverted and more self-conscious. I'll just say, hey, let's just go outside for 10 minutes. We'll do this workout that I'm going to do, but you could stop at 10 minutes, scale it back. I'm going to be in gear because that's what I need to do for myself, but just come out in PT clothes, man. I don't want to be out there by myself. That's what I say. I make a deal with them. I'm like, hey, man, you come out there 10 minutes, I'll leave you alone the rest of the shift. And what ends up happening is they'll go out there, the 10 minutes goes by, and they end up staying for 20, 30, 40 minutes. And my goal is just to get one person out there, because then once you get one person out there, more people are going to join.
Right.
And that is how I get my whole crew. I love my crew, man. They all work out with me.
That's awesome. Has it always been that way?
No, it hasn't always been that way. When I wasn't always this way either.
Let's talk about that.
When I first got on the job, I worked out and stuff. I wrestled in high school, so I was in pretty good physical shape. But I just cared about looking good. Like, I was into the bodybuilding stuff, the bro splits. Like, all right, buys and tries today.
Right.
No cardio, because cardio kills gains.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just gonna eat a bunch of protein and all that. And I started getting more into the job, and I kind of realized, like, during training, that I was just as tired as somebody who doesn't train at all, doesn't work out, and
right.
I got tired of people talking shit, saying like, oh man, you work out all the time, why are you so tired? And it's
different.
It's just different. The gear, I call it the almighty equalizer. I mean, it's a completely different environment.
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
in Florida.
Yeah.
With the heat.
Absolutely.
You could do something in your gear where normally in PT clothes your heart rate would maybe be 130. In gear, it could be 180.
Yeah, absolutely. It puts you in a different place mentally, sure. Right away.
Oh yeah,
right away. And it's something to say, man. We'll jump back to where we're at now, but back to the ego thing. It has to be removed for growth, right? You have to understand you're not as good as you think you are, and the greatest people ever, they realize that early on. Like, I'm
Right.
not as good as, and even like people that are great, they still don't think they're good enough. And that's the only way you show up with the open mindset of like, I'm going to grow, I'm going to get better, and I'm going to work on my faults. I think too many people capitalize on their strengths, and they're like, they don't leave that little bubble of like, this is what I'm good at, man. This is my expertise. And that's fine. But what happens when you're put in a situation where you're not good at something? And then now you look like a bigger doofus. And it's like, you could have prevented that by just being uncomfortable sooner.
I think part of the problem is it's a comfort thing, like you said, and you're going to do something that you're good at. That's your comfort zone.
Right.
But now you're going to do something you're not good at. It's kind of like fear of the unknown.
Right. And starting over. You're starting from square
100%.
one.
Yeah, you're starting out as like a white belt.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. But I think training in gear, it's always hard. Like, I don't think it ever gets easy.
I think just your mindset shifts.
You know how to deal with. I remember when I first started doing gear workouts, I was weak, man. I'd get to a point where like I would like mentally panic. Like, I remember, I'll never forget, I was in Marion County, actually here. So around, I got through the shirt on. I was at Station 17, and I was just like mentally weak, like, and I would put myself in that position because I knew I needed to grow, and it'd be summertime, full gear, on air, doing a circuit, and I would have trouble wrapping my head around how much of the workout was left and not focusing on the task at hand. And once I finally figured, like, hey, you need to control your mindset, and let's talk about that. Like, everybody wants to build a strong mindset. How do you build a strong mindset? You have to be able to break it down. Like, you got to be able to, like, bit by bit, right? So now when I do workouts, whatever I'm doing is what I focus on. And then when I finish that rep count, I move on to the next thing. And then when I finish the round, I just focus on the next exercise, you know? And then when I run out of air, I usually push myself. I've learned that through training. I never stop when I'm out of air. Because what happens if I'm in a fire and I'm not out of the building? I'm not just going to stop.
Right.
Like, I've got to get out.
I agree too. I do that with a lot of our new hires and our new guys. I'll put them through an air consumption drill. And if I see they're starting to panic and stuff, I make them stay in their gear. And I say, if you're going to come off, and I want you to put your gear away neatly.
Right.
Just to show that you still have control and you're fine. You're not dying right now.
Right. Absolutely.
And, going back to, it's never easy doing the gear workouts, but I think you get better at compartmentalization. And I just tell myself, like, just one more rep, just keep going, one more rep, you can do one more rep. Next thing you know, you busted out 1,000 reps.
Right.
And not thinking too far ahead. I
Right.
mean, I was just telling you earlier, the other day I did a gear workout at the station. It was a 5-rounder, and I wanted to stop after round 3. But I was able to push through to round 5, and it was just, I would just focus on each exercise I was doing, 1 rep at a time, and the next thing I know, I was done. And then I felt so much better knowing that I was able to push through, and I told myself I wanted to do 5 rounds, and I did what I said I wanted to do. I could have called it quits at 3, and nobody would have known any different.
Right.
My crew would have been like, hey, you still worked out today. But I think deep down, I would have known, maybe I could have went a little further. And then you rob yourself of, like what David Goggins says, of earning that cookie to put in the jar.
Right. Like, I've been there before.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about it. I did a birthday mile. I posted it on social media. And I started off, I bit way more than I could chew. I've not been training in gear like I used to. And it's like anything. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Right.
And not saying you can't compete or you can't function at a high level. It's just not the level we're used to being comfortable at, which most people will never get to because they're not going to put the work in. But halfway in, I stripped the gear. And I told you, I felt it bothered me. But sometimes, guys, you got to realize you might think you're at this level, but you're not there yet. You got to build back up. And to me, I was more focused on completing the workout than I was being out there for 2 hours and staying in gear, right? So I took the gear off and I said, this is going to be a workout I revisit another time with the same.
And it's still a gnarly workout without gear.
Right.
It's just something to work towards. And
right.
it's nice to have those goals to work towards. And I almost call it like a litmus test. So if you're about to go through some sort of strenuous process, whether you're trying out for like a SWAT team or you want to go through a smoke diver program, it's a good way to be like, okay, when I first started training, I couldn't do this in gear, but now I'm able to do this in gear and still have some left in the gas tank. It kind of gives you that confidence.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and
yeah. I mean, just like the workout we did today, it was
right.
very simple. But next time you do it, like I did better today than I did last week. And the next time I do it, I'm going to push better and better. And I'm not going to accept doing worse or, you know.
I love the simple workouts too, because just because they're simple doesn't mean they're easy.
Right. Well, and I think, and let's talk about that because we were talking about earlier how everybody wants the secret code. Hey, I want a training plan for smoke divers. And some people, most people don't understand the difference between working out and training.
Right.
There's a big difference. Working out is great. It's healthy. It's great for your mind. But training is very intentional. So let's talk about that. What is your thought process on training for a specific goal compared to working out?
Right. So working out, you're just, I would say working out is more of a check mark for something long-term, such as overall health and fitness, right? So like an active recovery day is good because it's more, I mean, you could put that in a training program as well, but you check the box, you got your heart rate up, you're most likely going to, live a little bit longer of a life because
right, release some endorphins, yeah.
Versus training, I mean, depending on what you're training for, you have to be able to prepare your body for what you're going to go through in that program or your goal, such as like a marathon, half marathon, 5K, whatever it is. And sometimes there's no way to simulate something that's strenuous. Like you can't simulate going through Hell Week if you're trained to be a Navy SEAL.
Right.
You can't do that on your own. And that's where that goes back to when you're training, you have to be able to push yourself past your perceived limitations so that you can draw on that when you're in those dark moments.
And that's the mindset portion.
The mindset, right.
Which is different from the physical.
Right, because as you know, I've seen it, year after year. Everybody who passes an entrance test for some sort of program can pass the program. They have the physical traits to do it.
100%.
But if they don't have their nutrition properly, they're not getting the electrolytes in, their mindset's not quite where it's at, they're worried about what's going to happen next, they're just going to fall apart.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it. I've seen dudes who are complete studs, like look like they belong, like in the Rocky movie, and they fall out after day one for whatever reason. They just weren't as prepared because of the training.
Right, absolutely. And it's the difference in preparing mentally versus physically. And I think that just comes down to understanding what your limits are. And you got to be honest, guys. You got to, back to the beginning of stepping outside of your comfort zone, you've got to be honest of where you're at. You have to put yourself in a position where you literally understand you're not where you need to be. And now every time you train, you need to push past that. So when you get to the point of exhaustion, you get to the point of, I'm done, you need to have a conversation with yourself and put yourself past that perceived limit because you're not done. And what that does is, like you said, it just builds up that, it pushes the limit, pushes the barrier, pushes the ceiling, so that when you do get put in the situation that you can't put yourself in personally, you need to be in a program, a challenge, a race, you can go back and say, I pushed farther, I've got more.
Exactly. Because I've had multiple people since I passed Georgia Smoke Diver back in February. I've had multiple people reach out and ask me like what my training program was or what my best advice is. And what I've told a few people is my best advice, and I actually got this from my buddy Matt McGee, who you're interviewing tomorrow. He told me you have to be able to stack on the suffering. So who cares that if you're in this training program and you truly want to be a smoke diver, nobody cares that you crushed the one workout of the day.
Right.
Because anybody can do that. I mean, anybody can do anything when they're fresh.
Right.
But what can you do 30 minutes from then? Can you do the same thing?
Right.
Can you put up the same numbers? Can you do a different workout and still get through it? And then how about a third workout that night? And that's where you start building the mental callousness to be able to push through things. Because me and Matt joke all the time. that I'm the type of person that I've never been physically gifted with athleticism or, height or anything like that. All I've had was just hard work and grit and being a grinder. And I learned that from wrestling in high school. My freshman year, I didn't even make the varsity team. I was JV. And I asked my coach, like, hey, what can I do to get better? And he said, well, wrestle more. I'm like, well, what do you mean, coach? He's like, well, 80% of the Florida kids that wrestle, they probably play other sports. They either play football or baseball, or maybe they just take the summer off because they just wrestle during the wrestling season. He said, if you truly want to get better, you need to wrestle in the off season and hit the weights. So I took his advice, and that's what I did. Next thing I know, I broke the varsity lineup sophomore year, kept that same mindset, took it up a notch because I decided I wanted to be, I wanted to be a state champion. So I would then wake up every morning. I'd run 3 miles every day before school, go to school. Luckily I had weightlifting class because we were allowed to do that instead of gym. Lift weights and then grind it out in the wrestling room for 3 hours. Sophomore year went by. I didn't have a crazy great record. I think I won more matches than I lost. Trained my ass off again that summer. Went to a couple wrestling camps, kind of like how fire conferences are. You learn from these, Division I, Division II wrestlers who are at an elite level, maybe even some Olympians. Learn some new moves, train it, drill it, learn from their mindset. And then my junior and senior year, I was the team captain. And my senior year, I broke the single season takedown record.
That's awesome.
So I fell short in my goal. I actually, I didn't become a state champion.
Which is extremely difficult.
It is difficult. But what I gained from that was much more valuable than some medal. I learned hard work, grit, and just how to be a grinder because I went from my freshman year getting wrecked on the mat every time I stepped out on the mat to, now I was ranked in the county and people didn't want to wrestle me. And because, it was just from hard work.
Right.
It wasn't, maybe if somebody from the outside looking in, they may think, oh man, Broberg was athletically talented and was just a great wrestler. It's human nature.
Right.
You look at people that are, good at something and you just assume they're automatically good at it. But I can guarantee you that they spent thousands of hours perfecting whatever craft it is.
And I got to ask you, guys, I've known Logan for a long time. What was your take on me in high school compared to now? Be honest. Tell the people, be honest.
Honestly, dude, you were a gifted athlete, but I don't think you reached your full potential because you didn't work as hard.
Right,
I think
right.
you know that.
Yeah. But people think, like you just said, people see progress, they see us,
right,
and they think they've always been that way.
Right, like you were born basically to be a football player. You were a big dude.
Right.
You were what, 6 something in high school?
Yeah, 6 foot at least.
Yeah, over 200 pounds. Built like a man.
Right.
My freshman year, I was 120 pounds soaking wet. So, but I think that's how people get it twisted. Is sometimes people are blessed with certain gifts, but they don't take advantage. Or somebody who just is a grinder, I'd much rather have them on my team than somebody who's just physically or talented.
Talented, yeah, absolutely, because they got heart.
Right.
And they're dependable when shit.
When it's dark, like going back to the fire service, when we're running 6 calls after midnight, and it's the same bum we just picked up 2 hours ago.
Right.
They're most likely not going to complain because they're just a grinder. Just like, let's just get it done and let's get back to the house.
Yeah, knock it out.
Or God forbid you run 3 structure fires in a shift. I mean, that happened to my lieutenant the other day. He got mandoed, so he's on the back half of his 48, 3 structure fires.
That's incredible, I think.
Oh, I was super jealous, but I just love hearing stuff like that because people always give me shit about working out on shift.
Oh, let's talk about that.
And my biggest argument is, well, what happens when you get multiple big calls in a shift?
Well, we're just not going to respond, obviously.
I mean, the way I see it and the way it was explained to me when I first started training this way is, if you can't do a workout on shift and recover in time when the tones drop, then you're not in the shape that you need to be in.
No, absolutely.
Now, I'm also saying don't do a workout that is going to be a Jimmy kicker that you're going to need a little while to recover. But the way I look at it is when I work out on shift, it should merely be a primer. It's to get me feeling good, get me loose, push myself a little bit, but I'm still leaving a little bit in the gas tank in case something does drop. And honestly, I just always feel better after I work out. So why wouldn't I work out on shift?
Right.
And if we do catch a fire, I'm already warmed up.
Yeah.
I'm already ready to go.
Yeah. Less prone to get injured.
Exactly.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think it just goes back to people erring on the side of safety.
Sure.
Let's be safe. And you know how you're safe is you're prepared. You know how you're safe, you're aggressive. You do what you're trained to do. And it just goes back to training. You have to be trained. You have to be ready for that. And all the people that want to be safe, when stuff does go bad and the worst of the worst is happening, they come looking for the people that are prepared, right? And at that moment, safety kind of goes out the window.
Right. Well, and this is always my argument when people say they don't want to train. So, just an example of hey, we're going, my crew doesn't do this, but I've witnessed it. Say, hey, we're going to go down to the training center, we're going to go get some reps in on the forcible entry prop. Oh, I already know how to force a door. They showed us that in fire school. And it's like, okay, well,
lovely.
When's the last time you went to fire school? Oh, that was 4 years ago? Okay. And you never touched the Halligan since? Okay. And so I break it down. I'm like, you're a football fan, right? Yeah, I'm a Tampa Bay fan. I love Tom Brady. Okay, well, how would you feel if Tom Brady showed up last season and said, you know what? I already won 5 Super Bowls. I don't need to show up to practice anymore. I mean, really, what's the difference? Because I truly believe
there's no difference.
That we are, especially if you're a paid fireman, you're essentially a professional tactical athlete. I mean, you'd be pissed if you're sitting on your couch on Sunday drinking beer and eating Doritos and you find out Tom Brady hasn't practiced in months because he's already won Super Bowls. I mean, what's the difference?
Right. Or, better yet, your wife is trapped in a vehicle and the guys show up on scene and don't know how to extricate her.
Right.
Or your house catches on fire and they deem the house as a defensive attack because they're not aggressive or confident enough in their skills to go search the room that is survivable.
Right.
Or understand the difference. Understand. We talk all the time, people fully involved. Whoa, hold on a second. There's just a lot of fire. That doesn't mean it's fully involved. Right. There's a big difference. So I want to transition, man, and talk about you're no stranger to failure. So let's talk about the failure. Let's just be honest. Let's tell the people what you failed at and your mindset currently. I know it doesn't faze you, and that's extremely impressive because most people falter when they don't achieve what they're striving to do. They just say, "Oh, it's not for me." It's
right.
Just the way the world is. It's just not.
Yeah, life's not fair.
Life's not fair. Yeah.
I mean, my thing is, I truly believe that there's really no such thing as failure. Either you win or you learn. And I know it sounds cliche, but I do truly believe that. Long story short, so I'm currently a Georiga Smoke diver now, but
yeah, but you just went there and passed, right?
No, it's been a long journey, man. So 6 years ago is when I decided, hey, I'm a pretty good fireman. I've been training my gear a little bit. I've been going to conferences. I think I'm ready to go to smoke divers.
Right.
And at the time, I think Florida was on a little bit of a hiatus. I think they had to take a year off because of the burn building.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really know much about Florida, but we had a guy from my department, Renato. He went through while he was a probie, and he was 40 years old.
He went through what?
Georiga Smoke diver.
Okay. Went
through Georiga Smoke diver as a probie. Was 40 years old, and he passed. So I was like, oh man, if Renato can do it, I think I can do it. I've got a few years on, and I, picked his brain a little bit. Didn't really get all the information I should have got because I was a little arrogant back then, and I wasn't training on my gear as much as I really needed to be. Wasn't stacking on the suffering. Wasn't doing the calisthenics I needed to be doing. Which there's no secrets in either program, Georgia or Florida. I mean, you know what you're going to be going through.
So what you're saying is don't do barbell curls.
Right. Or if you're going to do them, maybe make it your second or third workout and go high volume.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
So long story short, I go all the way up to Dalton, Georgia. It's 10 hours from my house. I take the entrance test, pass the entrance test, show up day one. They do a little search lecture, a little rah-rah, a little fireworks. Everybody comes in. Then they tell you to get on the grinder. And I don't know how long I lasted. I think it was probably less than 20 minutes on the grinder. And then I was ringing the bell. And so I packed all my stuff up, got a ride back to the Red Roof Inn, and drove 10 hours home. And had a lot of time to think and reflect. And, I learned a lot about myself. I learned I wasn't as good as I thought I was.
Now, let me ask you, did you in that moment think, like, you had no idea what was coming down the line, obviously?
I mean, I had a little bit of an idea. They weren't as big on social media as they are now.
No, what I'm saying is fast forward to today, you failed a lot more after that.
Oh, yeah.
So in that moment, were you like, all right, I failed, I learned my lesson, I'm going to get my shit together and then I'll be good. Like, I'm not, like, this is probably my only failure. Or were you, like, in the mindset of, like, what was your mindset at that moment?
So my mindset was, I was definitely going to come back because I was always raised that once you start something, you finish it. And I just have that grinder mentality. I just saw what the next level was, and I wasn't at that level yet, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I swallowed my pride, did my homework. I took a whole year to train, and then I actually didn't get into the next class.
Really?
Yeah. So me and Matt applied. We both didn't get in, and so Matt's like, "Well, you've been training. Why don't you just go to Florida?" Because Florida was, I think it was their second class since they got the new burn building.
Okay, so the class after me.
Right. Yeah, the class after your first time, I believe.
Second, but yeah.
Yeah. So I meet Matt McGee, and he puts me in the ground the first time I worked
Right.
out
What'd
with
you
him.
guys do?
We did, it was kind of similar to the spirit drill that he always posts.
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
a 5-rounder, but just in coat and pants. But I had never, like, done a workout like that before in gear, where it was high volume like that. Like, I'd burn a bottle, but I'd be moving at a slow pace.
Right.
And, I'm done when the bottle's done.
Not pushing it.
This was like an hour-plus workout in gear, and it was at 2 p.m. in the middle of summer in Florida.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Perfect.
So I got humbled from that. Matt helped me out a bunch. Fast forward, he pulls some strings. He gets me into the Florida class with you.
Okay.
Yep. So.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
That was the sniper class.
Yeah. So, and I think I'm pretty sure I met up with you a few times and trained. And
yeah, at the college.
At the college. And I was training with you and Tiago. And I was kind of a little skeptical. I'm like, oh, man, these guys are like fucking next level, dude. I showed up with whammy, and I'm like, these guys are getting 2 rounds on the oak course, man. Like, I don't know.
Right.
But I'm like, whatever. I'm just going to pull my bootstraps up and go. And so I make it in the class, pass the entrance test, get through day one.
So hold on a second. Before you get carried away, I want to capitalize on something you said, or something you do. And it's a great quality, and people need to be more aware of it. Don't ever be afraid to train with people because you're not at their level. Or you're not as good as you think you are. You don't want to show weakness. Show weakness. Understand you're on your own path. Like, he's on his own path. Anytime we show up to train, the competition's within. It's not, of course, like, we're gonna talk shit. That's always gonna happen. But I don't really care if he does better than me or I do better than him.
No, and you guys were not. You guys didn't say anything. You guys were on your own path and mission. Like, you guys were focused on yourselves. It was just something I noticed. I was like, man, dude, these guys are freaking. And I'll talk a little more about that, about comparing yourself to others too, because that was a big flaw that I had that I've been able to just adjust. But so long story short, I make it into class with you.
Right.
Make it through the entrance, make it through day one, which day one at Smoke Divers is a eye-opener if you've never gone through something like that. I don't want to give anything away, but they do a little welcome party, and they are very welcoming.
It's very friendly.
Yeah, and so I just wasn't keeping up with my nutrition and my electrolytes like I needed to. I didn't really know much about electrolytes, so all I was drinking was like Gatorade.
Right.
So second day, we do some PT, and I started cramping like bad. It was the worst cramps I ever had. And I remember we were doing bear crawls, and my abs and my quads cramped up, and I'm on the ground. Basil's staying over me, basically telling me either get up or quit.
Uh-huh.
And you know what though? In that moment, I pushed through the workout, and I actually gained a cookie in the cookie jar because I learned that even though I was cramping up, I was able to suck it up, stop being a pussy, and get the mission done.
Right. Well, and in a fire, if you start cramping, we can't condition our mind to just say, I need electrolytes, or
to lay down and quit.
you got to push.
Right. So I make it all the way to the burn that night, and I just had no gas left in my tank because I was malnourished, essentially. Didn't make it to the burn. So go back home, pack my stuff up, go back home, cry on the drive home. Because, I've been training for over a year and a half.
Right.
Didn't reach my goal. Look at myself in the mirror and say, all right, well, next year's my year. Take a whole year to train. Fast forward, I get my nutrition dialed in. Everything's good. Make it all the way to the final. Fail the final. And, to be honest, that one still haunts me to this day. I think about it every day. Every day I train, I think about the final scenario at Florida Smoke Divers and how close I was to getting my chip. But I still learned a lot about myself there because without giving away what the scenario is, when they told me I had been I was doing a primary search for over 2 hours.
You were here a very long time.
Right.
A very long time.
I mean, I just remember it was like the most thirsty I had ever felt in my life.
Right.
But I was using my compartmentalization. I was telling myself, like, hey, man, let's just clear this floor, clear the next floor. They'll give me a bottle of water, and then I can go get my chip.
Right.
And it just didn't happen because I kept making mental mistakes.
Right.
Having to repeat the search. Next thing I know, 2 hours goes by. I lost 12 plus pounds in fluid. But I can honestly say I have never felt that way ever. And now I know what my true capacity is.
So regardless, and everybody needs to understand that it's bigger than the hat, the title.
Right.
It's application to real life, right? So the other day, somebody asked me, well, what do you really learn? And I'm like, you learn when things go south, what your limits are. And we don't think about how bad of situations we can actually get in.
Right.
And this is the only thing that's going to get you out.
Yep.
Right. Because, the same thing talking about training when you run out of air. Like, that is a bad moment. Right. You need to understand mentally, you need to keep your composure and expedite your speed of movement to get out of that situation. But go ahead. So
my second attempt at Florida.
So you were crushed.
I made it all the way to the end. I trained my ass off for
now.
Over 2
There was
years.
a conversation. I'm gonna bring this up because he's one of my best friends. Because you got all poopy pants, and Evan looked at you and said, "Hey man, just keep your head up." And you said, "I trained hard for this," and he failed too. Right. And he said, "So did I. You're not the only one."
Well, so when he came up to me, I thought he passed. So I didn't realize he had failed too, because he I can't remember if he started ahead of me or he passed me in the scenario, and he was my partner that year, and he was crushing it all week. So I'm like, oh, Evan's got it.
Right.
So and I got stuck where I was at, and got eventually pulled out, and I just assumed Evan passed. So I thought he was coming up like, hey, keep your head high, and then I didn't realize he failed too. So I thought, I'm not ashamed of it. I was crying, dude.
Right. You cared about it. Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so then the next year, train again. And I just kind of accepted the fact that it's not just a class anymore for me. It's a lifestyle. And I'm not just training for the class. I'm training, honestly, to be the best fireman I can be. And that smoke divers is just a test.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're a good fireman. It doesn't mean you're a bad fireman. I mean, it might mean you're tough as nails.
You're tough.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, that's the biggest thing I tell people is it's just a test. It should be a test of what you're doing every day when you're at the firehouse.
Your lifestyle.
Right.
Absolutely.
And like I was telling you the other day, I feel like I'm at the point now mentally and physically where if I decide I want to do something, I'm pretty much 8 weeks out from doing anything I want to do physically.
Right.
If I want to go run a 50K, I could probably go do it if with 8 weeks of training, and it's not gonna be my best performance as if I would have trained for a whole year, but I can get through it. And I truly believe that I'm not that way for smoke diver as well. I truly believe I have selection coming up at the end of August. When I show up to selection, I think I could pass the whole course.
As you should.
Honestly.
You should be. You know what I mean?
And bringing me to my next point. So long story short, I went back the next year. I failed. And then this last time I got 6. So I've been there a total of 4 times.
Which is not the record.
No, it is not. But it's just, proving a point that it's not always about the goal, it's about the journey. And, I've met a lot of awesome people along the way that were also on the same journey.
We talked about that.
Yeah. And, some of them are smoke divers, and I'm not one yet, but I still feel like we have a closer connection than anybody else.
Yeah.
They understand what
we
go through. And, I'll call Chris Carr out, dude. Like, me and him are pretty close because we have similar stories. He failed multiple times. But he used to fuck me up because I would be, I was training my ass off. Like, I don't think I could have trained any harder. And I would look at what he was doing, and he was doing way more. Like, way more. Like, he was telling me he'd show up to shift. He'd do a full 9/11 stair climb in the morning. He would burn 3 bottles on shift.
But hold on, Chris, I love you, but he works for a specific department that they only work like twice a month. So
yeah, that is true. But I knew he was getting after it on his days off too.
The guy is elite. 100%.
But to go back to my point is, I started comparing myself to him, and I shouldn't have done that because we're 2 completely different people. We're not built the same way. He's over 6 feet tall, 220 pounds, ex-UCF quarterback athlete. I'm 5'8", 108 pounds.
Right.
Just a grinder. Not saying that he's not a grinder, but
it's 2 different humans.
It's just 2 different people. And when we went to the course, I wouldn't say he was performing exponentially better than me.
Right.
Or other people. And it just goes to show that it's, it's not all physical. It's mindset and dialing yourself in. And if you compare yourself, like if I compare myself to Julian, like today we ran a mile and he smoked me on the mile. But when he took off, I just said, well, that's Julian. I'm just going to keep running my pace.
You did. You ran your race.
And I'm going to finish my mile at my time.
You did.
And it is what it is. I'm not going to let it affect me on my run. You know what I mean? Because we're not the same person.
Right.
And I've also noticed that coming up and going to this class multiple times and met a lot of people, some other people would have that issue too. They would think they're not good enough, or, they're putting
self-limiting beliefs,
and they're putting somebody who is a Florida smoke diver up on a pedestal when they're a human being just like you and I.
Absolutely.
Well, obviously, you're a Florida smoke diver too, but when you weren't.
Right, no.
It's just a normal human being.
I'm not. I'm just Julian from Prepared to Fight Fire right now, man. So.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think when you compare yourself to others, it's going to rob you of your confidence, and any work that you have been putting in, it's just going to deter you if you're comparing yourself to even me. Let's say you're on day 1, I'm on day 1,000. Well, you don't know what I look like on day 1.
Right.
I'm in the same shoes you are. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll wrap this up. What is your definition, since you completed Georgia? And I think the premises of smoke divers across the world is the same. It's dedicating yourself to becoming the best firefighter you can be, and detesting mediocrity. Right. That's what I believe. But what is your definition of smoke diver from your experience so far?
I mean, like I said earlier, I truly believe that any smoke diver program, any program that's going to push you past your perceived limitations, it's just a test. But I will say, and this is my mindset, once I got that rocker, it is also a standard that you have to hold yourself to. Oof. And just because you got the patch or the hat doesn't mean you stop training.
It's a bigger target.
I truly believe it is a bigger target, and I make it a bigger target because I believe in competitiveness in the firehouse. And, I'll be the first one to tell you, I talk a lot of shit. I'm pretty damn good at it. My guys will tell you.
Right.
But I do it on purpose because I want them to hold me accountable.
Oh, elevate, yeah.
So when I come in and I'm all poopy pants, they check me. They're like, dude, you're a fucking smoke diver. Why are you being a little bitch? And it's like, you're right.
Right.
I am.
Right. Well, you're human too.
Right. But I think it's something to hold on to hold yourself to a higher standard.
You have to. And,
You know
and
what
it's
I mean?
one thing, like, to say you're a smoke diver, you got to live it.
Right.
You got to live it. You can't just claim it and it was something you did.
Yeah, the pride comes with the work.
Yeah.
The pride is not free.
Absolutely.
And like I said, I mean, if I stop training tomorrow and, you know, I decide to get lazy, then I'm no longer being a smoke diver.
Right. Absolutely.
So.
Well, bro, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Guys, like, subscribe, share this if you guys liked it, and stay tuned for the next one.